Okay, here we are.
All right, it's 10:30 and it's a Friday. It's 10:30 on 10:30.
Yes.
My mind is blown.
This has to be one of our weirdest intros.
Yeah. Okay. So part 2 of my demo, a couple of things that are fun on some Teams stuff. Just name drop one funky AI thing that we're going to use later on.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with Modern Workplace, but Todd and I were just in love with it, so we're going to talk about that. Part 2 of my demo.
Let me just talk about AI, because I've been thinking about some AI stuff too, just fun talking stuff.
Yeah, the Loeb AI stuff, right? Which is a commoditized AI model development. And we're going to try and get really risky at the end and show the tool with some CPU damage to all this.
We're going to do that.
I'm going to try it anyway. I just decided.
Okay. Doug changed his mind.
Yeah, whatever. If it doesn't work because of my CPU, I'll take the. We're trying to do production on the same machine that's going to show you a machine learning computational model for image analytics. So it's going to be a little larger, but very approachable and fun.
Yeah. Very approachable. To me, that's the big innovation here. Is how, you're basically training a machine learning model, by clicking things and using your camera.
So I'm trying to stay real down low on the news. My stuff may not even make it. It'll just be in the post, right? So I'll just name drop it, and then you can go check it out.
There was a ton of Power BI stuff this week. I only have Power BI news.
Well, then hit it, man.
Well,
you're all
Power BI and touching into some Excel. So very close. So, all right. So are we ready? Should we go? Should I go?
Yeah, go.
All right, cool. All right. Now this one is a hot button for me. Public publish to web. And actually, it's a little. If my colleague Brian is watching, we both got bit by this week. And I've worked with customers in sessions where I really explain to them what this is and how the settings should be set in your admin portal. You can make it, unfortunately, easy to publish external data. Okay, that's possible to do. It's also possible to set these things correctly and to warn your users and to actually even interrogate, which is what happened inside of Microsoft this week. We all got, if you had an external publish to web report published inside of Microsoft, you got an email this week saying, hey, maybe this is cool, maybe it's not, but still, no matter what, we need you to review. We need you to fill out this.
The good news is there is governance capabilities around it.
Oh yeah, and you should govern this one,
or turn it off.
Because I have worked with customers where in the meeting we discovered they published business data externally. And didn't even really realize what was happening. So very important to look at this. But we give you a new publish to web dialog, which is nice. It kind of shows you what it's going to look like. We give you some more information. And the other thing that we do tier 2 is we give you more flexibility over what happens when your report goes viral, right? Because this isn't just a static piece of content. This is dynamic. There's infrastructure deployed to handle this. So when things go viral and you maybe have like thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people all of a sudden looking at a report, we actually on the back end will change the way that we're serving that, and we give you control over I
would hope we do.
Yes.
Hey, your report's going viral. Let's just leave it on some low-tier, low-volume container infrastructure. Let's not scale that up for you.
Right. So
maybe you don't want that to happen. Maybe you're like, I don't feel like paying for that. I wasn't intention, and I don't want to host the world's COVID dashboard. Right? So there could be some options for you, right? So.
Yep. So here's what we actually do. We actually give you control over like an image that you can show. Like a placeholder image, it's kind of like technical difficulties. We'll be back soon, kind of thing. So we give you control over what users see. So you get a little something better than heavy use, try again soon, right?
Yeah. Sorry, you can set a threshold and have a custom UI.
Yes, and we give you some guidance over how to avoid getting into that penalty box, right? So this is good stuff here. So check this report out.
Surprisingly well thought out.
I'm saying
that was surprisingly well thought out.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I'm enjoying vertical tabs in Edge. I tried it because it's just one of these things where I'm like, all right, I'm going to try this, and if I hate it, I'll turn it back off. And I tried it, and man, I'm loving it. And not only that, but I discovered that I loved the collapse mode more. You get more real estate, and it's just, I don't know, try it out if you're using Edge Dev. So this one was fun for me for two reasons. One, because I love the enhanced compute engine. Two, because my colleague, I was sad earlier this year to lose Charles Webb to the product team. He was based here in St. Louis, and he came over from a partner and was a CSA, and he just is now moving to Redmond. So I'm happy for Charles, but sad to lose him in St. Louis. So this is a shout out to Charles here. So the enhanced compute engine in Power BI Premium is, I think we've talked about it maybe once or twice, but at the end of the day, when you have traditionally used data flows to ingest data, that stuff ends up as a file, right? And if there's one thing I know about a file, you can't query it unless you have compute behind it, right? So what the enhanced compute engine is actually, it's SQL, okay? It's SQL running in your premium capacity. So for doing things like direct query against your data flow, it makes that possible, right? Where you can pass through queries because, again, it's SQL, and you can do things like where clauses and things like that. So this is the enhanced compute engine. If you have premium, is something you should definitely be looking at, and that there's going to be continued investments in. The biggest announcement here is that for new premium capacities, it's going to be on by default, because there was some rigmarole that you had to go through if you had it before to turn it on, to enable it, and then to start to actually use it. So this is basically more about making it easier to use and leverage in capacity. So check that out if you haven't. After we talked about Ignite here not too long ago, one of the biggest exciting things that I talked about for Power BI was the premium per user.
Oh, could be me, but I think I lost Todd. Maybe we'll get him back. All right, well, I still show going on over the air, but I do believe I have lost Todd. So I still have his screen share, and I'm going to go to my technical difficulties mode and cut over to there until we get him back for a brief second, so I can chat with him and find out what might be going on, and say, hey, we lost you in Rendezvous. What happened? Todd says, lost you in web. Still have share. This is called live technical difficulties, when you're the producer and still see screen. Rejoin RV session. All right, so this is what Doug does when he loses his friend Todd from the broadcast. And I thought I can shift over to my content. I'm going to add Todd back in, and you're back. All right. Not quite for the audience yet. I got to replace and get your session back in and see, will the real Todd Kid. All right, give me a little audio for a second. All right, yeah. So what happened was you just kind of lost, but you're still on screen. I'm going to put you back, and the show goes on.
Okay. All I know is my Rendezvous, which is what we use on the back end, kind of just went black. And
yeah, fair.
Well, here I am. So. Hi, it's good to be back. Okay,
yeah. So I'm closing that down to get our scale back appropriately. So I was chatting with you on Sidecar. All right, we're good.
All right,
continue.
So, speaking of technical difficulties, there we go. All right, so priority access for Power BI Premium. This is going to be coming in preview and publicly mid-November. But if you just can't wait and you want to get kind of early in line to get your tenant enrolled, we have a link for that. So definitely check that out. This goes through like what's going to happen. You know, why would you want to do this? You know, is it something that you do want to do, or you just want to wait? Premium per user, definitely exciting. It's going to enable a lot of scenarios for a lot of users. So if you really want to get on top of that, check it out. This one I was super pumped about because, man, over the last year, I mean, frankly, over the last 2 years, but it's been ramping. from what at least my experience personally has been, is people are using the heck out of Databricks for their data architectures. I spend a lot of time talking to customers around what we would call like modern data warehouse or modern data architectures in the cloud that largely revolve around a data lake, and you have layers that you're doing things like data processing and ETL and data science and streaming and all that fun stuff. Databricks is a great way to do that, really common way to do that. We are enhancing and creating a first-class Databricks connector for Power BI, which enables not only connectivity but also SSO for direct query, right? So Spark can query massive data really quickly, and being able to do that and pass credentials down and do SSO to that is also great. So if you're using Power BI and Databricks, which a lot of people are, this one is super exciting. And because, of course, it is in Azure and it's in the cloud, you don't need a gateway. So that's exciting. So continue to look for improvements here. Really pumped about this one because Databricks is continuing to be a super important data source for the modern data warehouse. Cool. I'm not going to go through all these features, but we have hit October. We have the Power BI report server October 2020 update. I guess the thing to call out here is the Windows 7 stuff. So if you're still on Windows 7, beware. That ended almost a year ago. I guess, 10 minutes ago at this point. So if you are still using Windows 7, we are going to stop supporting Power BI Desktop on Windows 7 on January 31st, 2020. So we gave you a year lead time. I think that's pretty good. And so just a heads up. But, again, this is exciting. So things that are, I'll just show you one or two, things that just shipped in Power BI Desktop like last month are already showing up here. So I love our rapid cadence that we have with our report server and the desktop associated with it. Okay, this one, I'm super passionate, as you know, about data culture and governance around an enablement of self-service and organizational use of data. Really passionate about that. And these last two links kind of go over that. We've had certification for data sets and data flows for a while, but now we're bringing those same levels of certification of certified and promoted tags to apps and reports. So, which makes a lot of sense because at the end of the day, too, you want to have a lot of confidence that this report that you're looking at is reliable, has data that has reasonable provenance. So being able to certify a report or an app is really great from the consumption level. And I like how this post kind of reminds you that maybe as a best practice, if you are delivering content to a wide audience, apps is the way to go, right? For a lot of reasons, for lifecycle management, because commonly it's also not just the report that you care about, but the ability to use apps for broad delivery is great. But if you decide reports is best for you for sharing directly, you can also certify or promote your individual reports or apps. So this is really cool. I love when I talk to customers and they're investing in the thinking and the governance around these certification levels, because it really does enable more of a culture of data in an organization, and I'm excited to see this. So and really to kind of extend on that idea, because it's not just about always Power BI. Our old friend Excel is still alive and kicking, and that's putting it mildly. Excel has we introduced this idea of data types sometime, I don't know, last year, I think. I can't remember but the ability to create organizational data types and tie that in with Power BI is what we're talking about here. So let me scroll down and kind of show an example here where someone has a table here with information about customers. If I can connect that up to an organizational data type, I can start pulling in data from Power BI directly related to that customer, which is very, very cool. So I can start to bring in even information, not just about their metadata, but about sales, right? So if I have a customer and I want to bring in information about that customer sales, I can do that right through Excel, through discoverability and organizational data types, and again, culture of data. So this is really, really cool. I think this is another one, along with the sort of levels of certification, that I think organizations can and should invest in. Similar to like on the SharePoint side, we have our manage metadata and all those hierarchies and things that we have over there that really enhance those capabilities and then light up other things that aren't just related to tagging. This is really exciting, I think, and bringing this to Excel is just makes a ton of sense and is pretty cool. So look at that, Doug. Even with my my blip, I hit my halftime. So that's all I have this week.
All right, that's awesome.
Cool. So yeah, definitely check out these custom data types and organizational data types, and it even goes through and shows you how to create these with Power Query. So really exciting stuff. I would definitely go check those out. So, all right, Mr. Splinter, I know you have a demo this week. Did you have any news as well, or just a demo?
I think we're going to stick with the demo. And I'm
cool.
going to bounce back from you because I'm on speaker, unfortunately, due to that thing. So if you could mute when you're not observing, kind of like I had to do for the week. It's very mild, but it is there.
I could absolutely do that.
Set up. I'm gonna leave the share with you. Get myself shrunk down. I think the biggest thing as far as news goes, while I pull this up and get my demo part ready, the Teams API for message import preview released and Teams displays released. So if I had to say, hey, there's one piece of news that I would want to share with people, it'd be to go check out the third-party platform message. You and I were talking about it, like, yeah, it might be used to migrate from a competitive platform, but the primary goal behind that motion is in reality the, I think it might be used to migrate from competitive platforms, but it'll also be used for tenant consolidation. I think it'll be a huge play for merger and acquisition to be able to bring import third-party platforms in. So you can create a back-in-time timestamp. You can create a channel with a back-in-time timestamp. I think there's gonna be a lot of use for this. I have customers that are trying to move away from some of their like old Jive platforms or something else. They're like, well, how do I migrate my context? I want to preserve historical context. So we have a preview for doing that. Kind of interesting.
This is great. This is what I didn't know was even kind of cooking, and then I saw it this morning, and I was like, hey, this is really, really cool.
You know, it's one of those things I had heard rumor, but you don't even want to speak about something until it gets into preview, right? Like I just, because you don't know how it's going to roll or where it's going to go. I have not played with it. I just saw the announcement. So yeah, the whole reason our logo looks like it is because we see there's a GUI and API for everything that you want to do, right? And it powers something. So all right. And then the other one was Teams displays GA'd in some form this week. So the sidecar displays. To be honest, I'm hoping that they'll allow some extensibility to that, because if I could have that and then get rid of my Elgato Stream Deck and have some like hotkeys for doing like show production and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like if they would allow some extensibility to that, I would be a pretty pleased end user. I mean, I think if you want it to be useful, it's going to have to be a little multi-purpose, but I don't know what their plans are for extensibility, or I have not done anything with this at all. So I'm curious about that as a platform, but that's not what we're going to do. Okay. We're going to return to our lessons from last week. If you'll recall, when last seen, we were at the landing, right? Which was our intranet page from an out-of-the-box Office Dev tenant. We wanted to allow viral contribution of content. So we created this customer stories page. And if you'll notice, there is, you're seeing some of the stuff we did last week, like the really cool, like this one right here. I generated this one this morning just so we'd have a fresh item. So I'm going to pick up where we left off. We're going to go back to our SharePoint list, and we're going to generate another one kind of live and on the air. I did add the final step of the flow, which we're going to cover, which is actually having the page publish via the API, right? So we're going to break that down, and then we're going to go look at the Power App, and then we're going to look at how we make the page pretty. So those are the big three things we're trying to accomplish today, is to walk through those steps. So Todd, if you don't think I'm being clear or you want to coach me through something, unmute, give me your observations. All feedback and commentary most welcome. Okay, so here's my site content. This is my pub content list, which is driving the vast majority of the items that we've done so far. So this is nothing more than a SharePoint list with a flow wired up to it. Here's our items. We're going to add one more in today. Now notice we've got a workflow state, the title of the story, and then we have these text line, text one, text two, which we're using as generic. I'm using text one as the name of my customer for this particular case. And then we haven't done much with text two yet. We have a choice for our office location, and then we have choice two, which is currently our industry. And then we have our text blocks for our stories that are going to produce pages. The pages they will produce will look something like this one right here, where we have really cool customer story from 10:06 a.m. This is the one I did just to make sure I hadn't broken anything. before we went on the air. So we'll go back and we'll create one more of those and manually through the native list interface. Now, yes, you could make a Power App from this, edit the form, and try and pretty it up, but that's still not going to be as cool as a really forms-driven, a UI-driven Power App that you would make. So that's what we're going to go as our last lesson today. We're going to do this. So because that flow won't go unless it's staged, we're going to make it as staged. So we're going to call this the Todd loves his new drone for surveying. Okay. So
and
I'm going to go ahead.
I'm sure that I would. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and say customer is Toddco, right? We're not going to put anything for our text line. We're going to say that the office that did this work was just the Chicago office. And we're going to say, Todd, that you are in the manufacturing segment. And we'll just put a little text block in here. Lorem ipsum dolor, right? I did lopum, doesn't really matter. So that'll be very authentic. You'll know I wasn't faking it. We'll just put in text block too. And normally, obviously, someone put in some legit things. Right now, as you recall, when we stopped last week, we did not have all these fields wired in. We're talking about how to do that today. I had some pre-wired in so we could show it. And then workflow approver, not really set yet because we don't have workflows wired into this. So right now, we've got all the metadata we need in order to drive an initial story creation. That it's in the proper state for the flow to pick it up. We have our other stuff on top of it. We don't have a custom photo or anything, but we're going to go ahead and hit save. Now, behind the scenes, we've got that in there. Todd loves his new drone for surveying. So let's go over to the flow. And we're going to be those impatient people who go ahead and go over and hammer their refresh button on their flow run and hope that so this is what I did 43 minutes ago. So we're just going to sit here and sort of hammer on the keyboards. Within 60 seconds, we should see that hopefully live executing flow on top of what we have going on because we added a new entry, and that flow triggers on a add or change, because if someone changes the workflow state or anything else, oh, there it was, it's running from 5 seconds ago. So let's go pick this one up and we'll break down our flow from last week. And then notice we have our variable initialization, but right now it's down here running in the condition. You can see it's assembled the current time, it's composed it. It has checked for attachments, it's copied the template, updated the file properties with our metadata, so it's injected in the choices we made, right? And it has done that dynamic content update stage. See where it has the title, Todd loves his drone for surveying and Toddco. You can see it right there inside of the XML and the JSON that's sent for it. And then we added that final step last week, which was the actual go ahead and tell that page to be published, because otherwise that page is just sitting out there in edit mode, which is totally cool. We wanted the full example of how do we automatically get it from that UI on top of it. Now, if all has gone well, if we come over into our site pages, which I think I had open. Yep, there it is. Notice how we already have a few seconds ago, this page is dynamically updated on top of it. And if we click on it, we have a dynamically assembled, properly, we hope, metadata targeted tag page. And there it is, Toddco, Todd loves his new drone for surveying, right? There's my lopum ipsum, right? We have our text one box. Now, we had put these fields in, right? But we don't have them for reals yet, because we haven't gone and injected our variables into that JSON payload that we were putting in. We only did one last week. But now all you really have to do is go search for the HTML for bracket text one bracket, right? And then just add your variable into the flow, and you can start putting as many of those fields. So whatever you're going to gather and do, you have as many of those as you want, and you can dynamically inject it. Today we're going to break down the Power App to drive the entrance, and how you make a nicer looking template for the merge operation. Make sense? Like, those are the big two things I want to show people today as part of this cookbook. All right. So if I come back over here on top of it, let's go back to our landing zone. You can see on top of it, here's the pages that we came in. So if we go to our customer stories for most recent pages, and if we refresh, if all has gone well in this universe, we should somewhere on the page have our Todd one should appear in here in the next couple of minutes, depending if I filtered it or not. So the 1006 one is in there, but yours will be there soon, as soon as the crawler gets through and has that stuff. Because then you can go ahead and do whatever you want on top of it. Now for Toddco, it is important to note that because we're using highlighted content and because we have page properties, if you look at the page details here, you can see the properties are industry and manufacturing. I tend to also have another field called asset type. Is this a customer story? Is this a tech article? Is it a publication event? I have an asset type field I normally add to it so that I can choose to say I only want to show customer stories. I don't want to show like cool event stories. Make sense? Like it gives more metadata, more better. If you have consistent titling or content, you can obviously use content by search to filter it. But then if you come back around to that customer stories page that we were playing around with over here, basically, if you edit this web part, you can change which articles and pages show up, right? Do you only want to show news? Do you want to show these? Do you only want to show construction industry news? Like that metadata is what you can use to filter it down. So then over on some construction site, you can say, hey, here's all the drone news for the construction industry people. Here's the manufacturing or energy. So I like that metadata because it allows you to make this highly relevant and discoverable from a content standpoint. Okay,
yep.
So we have our list.
Usual kind of stuff there. If you start capturing it right away, you can use it later. If you don't, it's a little more challenging, right?
Yeah, and there's cool things you can do to like nowadays. You can run text analysis and then infer an industry or launch a workflow for confirmation. But they are all metadata cleanup exercises. No matter how good you're doing, it's if you get it when it was created. Now, you don't want to have a laundry list of like 19 things you ask someone. People then won't give you stuff, right? So you gotta be careful about what you want. And you can infer a lot from people's roles and that kind of stuff, which is pretty cool.
I was going to say, stuff with the AI builder that's in there too, being able to do some of those things and even suggest it up front. It's like, hey, just based on what you typed, I think this is construction news.
That's right.
Correct?
Yeah, you can do suggestions. You can do whatever you want. So here you go. If you look at this, you say you can have a customer pick from a database, and you just automatically grab the industry when you select the customer, right? There's all sorts of stuff you can do that are amazing. Now, again, this broke through and illustrated how to do the stuff, but we had our copy template, right? So we cloned the original news template, so this news post template, and then we updated the file properties, and we said, all right, we're going to tattoo it with the metadata. We're going to clean up the title and make sure no one put any weird characters because SharePoint's going to throw up all over that. We don't want that to happen. And then we sent the HTTP request with that big giant JSON payload with our mail merged variables that are in there for doing some replacements on top of that. And then we send our publish request. So all the instruments and elements that you would need to make this magic happen. But where does this JSON payload come from, right? And so what we did was we made a standard flow to extract that payload for you. It is the simplest thing ever. So I'm going to go over here to my flows, and I'm going to I made a flow called read template, which is a manually executing flow. So let's go peek at it, and it's previously been run on top of it, and it's the simplest thing ever. If we edit that flow and you look at it, it's going to go ahead and say, I'm going to do a copy file, right? I'm going to copy that news page template, and I'm going to send an HTTP request to go get the contents of that item. You can just skip and do the item ID. This just means you just get a nice GUI picker. If you happen to know the item ID or you want to do the fetch item ID by path name, you can do it. You do have to then go delete the cloned page, which won't be published or it won't be visible to anyone really. But this is the simplest flow I could construct that requires no one to learn anything except browsing to a file. So you go make a file you like, right? Make the news page that you want. Put little easily describable things in like, that you could search. Make sure you don't use things that represent HTML characters, like put a long, this is block 1, but don't put the little, like I did, put the arrows. Well, those are actually HTML characters when they're in. So then you have to know the HTML to go find that. So don't do that. Just put in a nice long word. This is where part 1 goes, all ramped together, right? This is where part 2 goes. Make your beautiful page layout in a normal layout. And then this item right in here is just simply going to say, I'm going to go get the content of that. I would just like to get back the JSON, right? Now remember, we had the 2 sections, the web part layout and the content that we described in the previous. They're the same ones we're updating on top of that. So we're going to completely cheat. I'm going to go back to site contents. I'm going to go into my site pages area. And I had on top of it, my templates folder. So I'm going to sort this down and just do, I would like all pages, please. And then I'll pop into templates here. And this then is my newspost.aspx. So I would go ahead and tweak this to whatever beautiful, like send this to a graphic designer and say, send me a nice looking news page, however you want this damn thing laid out, right? Notice we have the one that's exactly like what we're seeing on here. So send it over to the most graphically inclined person you know who's going to do the story layout. You get the page back. You just give them edit rights to this page. And then we're going to go run that flow we just showed you, which is going to go fetch that content. And then you're going to completely cheat. you're going to go look at the execution of that flow that we had, and on the send HTTP request output from that flow, the fetchback output is the JSON values that we had. And notice there's the description first. See the layout web part content, right? That's exactly the XML piece that we're going to put into the other flow. Like, that's all we're doing. We're grabbing the layout. And if you go down on top of it, there's one other section that we're going to grab on top of it, which is actually the web part content, which I think might have been above, and I scrolled past it.
Canvas too, because I've worked with, just to kind of do a quick sidebar on this. I've worked with a lot of people who aren't coders and taught them like Power Automate and Power Apps. And I think the things that you're showing here, the kind of just the techniques that you're using, and to not be afraid of all this goo. And
don't, it's easy. It's not hard.
Yeah. I think some people just have to maybe almost even just get over like, hey, there's things that look weird, right? Like JSON and XML and whatever. If you can kind of just, I don't know, move beyond
like cells and columns in an Excel spreadsheet. You're just updating like these little tiny chunks, right? That's all we're doing. And the post in the web part is just saying, please update this little tiny portion of a web page. Merge these two things together. You're doing mail merge. It's really what you're doing, right? And
I told my kids this: if you can learn like JSON and HTML, like just how to read it and how to mess with it, like that's huge, right? It's just like learning Excel, right? It's really important. So
now the last part, because we're almost over. Do we want to run a little long and show the lobe thing? I think maybe.
I'm okay. Yeah.
We'll run long. If you want to hang with us, if you don't, you can stop. But all right. So then what was the last part? I decided, what we really needed was like a friendlier UI than the SharePoint list, right? So all I did, and this is from one of my favorite vacations ever, this village in the French Alps. I'm like, I want stories from the field. And so here's this like nice, beautiful UI. Then you could say, hey, I would like to submit a new story into the framework. And here we have it. We have our title, we have our customer name, we have our text block, right? So I can go ahead and say, Todd again, and Toddco. I can go ahead and say, here's my author. And notice I haven't really prettied up these titles at all. I pointed at a data source and said, build me a SharePoint app, right? And then I did change the text block to rich text, right? Rich text, because it lets you bullet. Because a lot of people want to do something like, 1, 2, not even a bother. All right, so we got enough in here for our workflow state to succeed. I don't really have the draft button wired up. I wanted to keep this thing nice and simple. So there you go. I don't even have a command in this particular app to return you back to home after submit. Like I have in the formal one, I have that, but I want everything to be like super, super simple. So you're back. Now under the covers, obviously what that has done is add to our SharePoint list on top of it. So there's Todd again on top of it. We didn't pick industries or anything else, so those won't be present, and they won't, but it is staged. So under the covers, unless something has gone terribly wrong, we'll have, yep, there it is. So it already picked it up and it generated a new page on top of it. And it should have created that and merged our, that's the other one. But we should have our new one. If I refresh the page, within 60 seconds, we should get our new page generation on top of it. You can see right there, it's already cloning the page. So we're actually watching the flow process sort of in line. You're seeing that page clone, and it should make it through the orchestration layer for the News ASPX clone to come in. And there's Todd again, so our page is generated. So that was the actual, you actually kind of saw behind, like from the external observation, all the stages of the flow come in. And here's the Todd again page. And then rich text because it lets you bullet with my typos and all included. Do you see the idea of the whole merge coming together? So I have this beautiful Power App for the field, right? That they can put on their phones, they can capture photos, they can do all these amazing things. And it's going to generate full SharePoint news pages with metadata that can be targeted, socialized, and shared. We're going to keep iterating on this, but this is the core of this whole framework. And I think it's a really cool technique to build from a citizen developer, like we talked about last week, an entire publication framework. There's a lot more lessons to how to share and all these advanced things we're going to keep going on. And I'm going to keep unwrapping this a little bit each week, but you now have all the core pieces, right? You've got the understanding of the list, the publication framework, how to do the triggers, how to update the thing, how to go take a page, turn it into its JSON elements, grab those things and insert it into a dynamically updating. You only need two sections, the layout and the Canvas content, right? You merge those things back in and you've got yourself a beautiful looking standardized SharePoint web page from a publication standpoint.
Well, and even on top of there, we haven't even touched on, all the back end kind of boring stuff, right? Like lifecycle management and the governance pieces and the logging and all of that. I mean, there's so much you can do. Whatever your imagination, I don't mean to, right? But
this one really for me was there was obviously you probably can detect my enthusiasm for this project because it solved a real problem that we were having.
It was a real problem. Yes,
it was a real problem, and it's a problem that a lot of people have. That is, how do I get nice looking, consistent content with contextual data and intelligent placement from my enterprise? I want to do newsletters. I want to do quarterly updates. I want to.
How do I do that without hiring a team of developers? Right.
Yeah. and how do I get it from the front? That people always say, I want to have visibility from the front of my organization to the back, right? I really want that connected, employee experience, the voice of the field or something like that. Well, how about just this is a way to have that kind of telemetry, not telemetry, but real substantive content come back. There's other ways to get telemetry with apps in people's hands and, frontline worker enhancements and the rest of the stuff, but I just think it's super fun. So, all right, we're shifting topics into our bonus territory, and up on screen is loading something from Microsoft acquisition a year or so ago called Load.ai.
2 years ago.
Is it 2 years ago?
It has been, yes.
Okay, so if you want to build machine learning models, those are difficult to do. We have had some tools over the years in the web where you can upload things and training and classifiers, but essentially, if you want to build a model, it's like for a tensor or something, those are tough to train.
Yep.
Fair?
Yeah.
So how do we go ahead and...
You don't just start like day zero, like it's not Hello World, right? I mean, there are some Hello Worlds, but to do something serious, yeah.
So what I did yesterday was I decided I want to train a model that would decide if I was wearing a mask properly or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just work. And proper, like this is not, I have one, but it's not really being, this is no mask, right? I wouldn't say this is improper. This is like, you're not even trying, right? Mask would be, I do this, and bad mask would be the people who do this. Agreed?
Don't get me started.
It kind of drives me a little crazy, but I thought, all right, well, what if we want to go around? So I just took a bunch of pictures yesterday, and you can see all the ones of bad mask. And you can just hold the button down on this training tool in order to do it. I'll show it to you in a minute, but we're going to go ahead and go over here, and we're just going to hit, we would like to play with this model on top of it. And I have it set in to come in from the camera. And so
again, this is all a client application that's running on your machine. This is not a web page. Yeah.
Now, the amount of CPU grind, and I'm hoping that it will actually be able to have access to my camera. I don't have the camera concurrently in use by the Studio app. So, and we're doing this all on the same machine. So I'm watching the CPU utilization. This was a risky part of our demo, right?
You're producing a show, broadcasting a show, trying to do machine learning. Yeah, you're asking a lot of me.
Yeah. And so I said, we'll just try it and see whether or not we can get it to fire it up. If not, otherwise I can go check out the images. But I think I'm on camera mode right now. And if I go over to images, I wonder if it'll. Yeah, so I think the camera is in use. So let me see if I can ditch the camera in use thing, because that would be the hard part in order to do. So give me like 2 seconds here. We're already in bonus territories, and talk amongst yourselves while Doug goes through here.
This is out what the cut of this week. I'm actually blown away, because every time you take a picture and you label it, because what you do when you train it and you're labeling it is you pick the label that you want to use, and then you can literally just hold down your shutter button and take like a series of pictures of like moving around, because you want all different angles, all different lighting, and it just really allows you to quickly generate a lot of training data, which is commonly, one of the most things that are the pain in the butt, right? Is getting all this training data, labeling it, and for scenarios of doing a quick model of something that you can do in your webcam, like that. This is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I don't know what else has it says it doesn't have the cam, but something has the camera. So trying to figure out a way that I'm going to try something pretty I'm going to try clearing the layer so you won't see us for a minute. I'm just going to try and see if I can get it to release through that. So one moment. Ooh, then they won't hear us either. That would be kind of bad. I don't think I can do it without more prep just because the camera's got control. So anyway, yeah, that's going to be.
Here's the good news. I mean, look, if you go to the website Lobe, LOBE.ai, you can enroll in the beta and download this and play with it.
All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and show you. So Nick was in here yesterday, so I can show you this. Essentially, you're now seeing, we did like 10 minutes of training, and you're seeing that like if you zoom in on that, you can see when I was wearing it below every time, and then I tried to like trick it and pretend my hand was a mask. Nope, it figured it out, right? It figured out that like that this is no mask. If you just go like this on top of it, that's not bad mask. So I was able to build a 98% reliable identification model in less than 20 minutes by doing nothing other than feeding it sample imagery from my webcam that showed what good and bad looked like.
Well, and here's the cool part. What you can do too is training it as it goes, as you're teaching it, at literally like on the fly. And then you could take this, and because ultimately it's all about integrating in an app, right? You can go in here and export it as like a TensorFlow model.
Yeah, that's the thing. So then, what do you do with this thing? Well, okay, now
export.
You can kick it out, and you get TensorFlow, TensorLite for mobile or a local API.
Yep. And these are things that you can use in mobile apps. These are things you can use in web apps.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
so we're going to basically do some fun with this and then tie it into flows, right? So hang tight. There's an Office 365 admin day coming up, and Todd and I were going to do like a prezzo for that. Todd permitting me for sure, right? Did you schedule clear? Or are you still waiting? So
yeah, still waiting.
All right. So, but we're going to have something really fun, and it will pre-record it if we have to, so you can be there virtually if nothing else. But that we're going to take this. So go to lobe.ai, download the tool, play. Right. I would say training the model, do I have a cell phone in my hand? Do I not? Like there's all sorts of amazing things that you can do on top of this. And so I wanted to take a little time and wire it up to something with the Teams real-time communications API. So depending on your spot, like we're going to use some of the advanced API stuff to do something kind of funky, crazy, but with a practical example where just like the Legos we showed you for SharePoint publication, like you should feel like you can actionably go build this yourself. That's really super important to me. I don't know what that's going to be yet. I'm still seeking mental inspiration on top of it because the world's your oyster now with this thing, right? All right. Well, we're way over. I appreciate everyone hanging with us to check out. Go play with Lobe AI.
I will get break out your ukulele and like we could play some songs and stuff too. I mean, we're in bonus features, so I don't know.
Oh, I don't know how to play.
Do you sing?
So,
yeah.
No, not well. No, we're just going to leave it at that.
All right. Well, then
I do juggle. I can juggle.
Yeah. Let's just wrap it.
Yeah, we're done. You all have a fabulous weekend.
Yeah.
Have a great and safe Halloween wherever you are.
Yeah.
And we will see you in a week for more fun and festivities on Flash Friday.
All right. Cheers. Bye.